All right, welcome back to Ancient Weapons Podcast. Tonight we're talking about the upcoming Texarkana Air Show happening June 27th, 2026 at the Texarkana Regional Airport. This is the first major air show this city has seen in over 30 years. And joining us tonight is a man deeply connected in aviation and helping bring attention to this event, Mr. Brandon Sanders. I want to give him an introduction real fast. Brandon is a seasoned aviation professional with over 20 years of experience as an FAA certified airframe and power plant technician and a U.S. Army chaplain major. He enlisted in the Army at 18 and worked on Kiowa Warrior helicopters during his deployment in Iraq and Afghanistan. After transitioning into general aviation, he delivered Quest Kodiak 100 aircraft into Pacific markets while performing specialized aircraft modifications. Brandon later worked in avionics for major commercial airlines, including Southwest Hawaiian and American Airlines, before moving into Boeing Commercial Airlines and Boeing Military Delivery Center, where he worked on the P-8 Poseidon and the KC-46 Pegasus program. Since 2023, he has led Texarkana College's aviation maintenance training program while helping expand aerospace certification opportunities for students. He also holds a Master of Divinity and a MBA in
Aviation.
Aviation
There you go.
project management from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Contributes to aviation and defense publications, and is a dedicated mentor, husband, and father of 2 daughters. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Man, I barely got through that.
That's all right. It's a lot of like 7-syllable words. So I probably should make it simpler whenever I send it to people.
But I guess we'll
kind of go from there.
Start off where you want, man.
I really like your studio. It's like you're a better builder than I'll ever be. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I kind of slapped it together pretty quick.
That's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah,
no.
February, and then now we're here. So
there you go.
Yeah, took a little bit of money though.
Yeah,
I tell you,
the construction costs can pretty quickly rack up.
These boards here, man, they're not cheap.
Right.
So
100%.
and it costs quite a bit. But
right. Well, there we go.
So I guess I'll ask the question: what got you into
aviation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So back whenever I was in high school, I wanted to do mission work, and my pastor had he identified there was a bunch of different kids that wanted to do that, and so he brought us all over to his house one Sunday for breakfast and was just like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? He's trying to get a feel for where everybody was at and how to kind of coach them. And I was like, I don't really know. And then it wasn't too long after that, I was watching this documentary on the National Geographic Channel and they were talking about like Brazil and the internal workings of like the logistics of how everything gets moved around. Well, a lot of those places are very much like Alaska. They're separate from each other. They're not connected by roads. And so how do you connect them? With small airplanes. Right. Well, I remember watching this scene where they're looking down like kind of like this shotgun row of houses, and this truck turns out and it's going to go driving down the road. But all of a sudden this like Cessna 182 comes in. That truck like tries to bamboozle out of the way, and the plane pulls off. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like for whatever reason that just really stuck with me. And I was like, maybe like if people are using airplanes that way, that we could use that in like mission work. So I go back to my pastor and I was like, I've got this great idea. Like we should do this. And he goes, well, it just so happens that there's like all these different organizations that are already doing that. And so then I was like, okay, well that's where God's leading me. And so I need to go like figure out how to do that. Right. Well, so I started, just trying to figure out how do I get involved? And I'd heard there was a flight instructor in town. And I'm sitting in my junior English class, and I'd already finished the reading that we were supposed to do. So I was reading my own book. Well, the teacher comes to me, she's like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "This," and she was like, "We're supposed to be reading that." And I was like, "Well, I already finished it." And she was like, "Well, you have to read it again." And I was like, I think I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And she's like, "Okay." And so I go out to the bathroom. I just went to my car, and I went driving around trying to find this guy.
Wow.
I was like, I'm wasting my time here at this English class. And so
sure.
And so I go, and he was in the Baptist bookstore on State Line in the very back. So I go up to the little ladies up front, and I'm just like, hey, like, I didn't even know it was a publishing house. So my experience with the Baptist bookstore was like a retail, front. And that was it. Mm-hmm. So I go and I say, hey, there's this guy. He's supposed to be a flight instructor. I'm like, oh yeah, that's this guy. And like, I don't remember his name. I go in the back. So I just go through this door. I'm just wandering around this like massive warehouse. All this stuff is going on. And I'm just like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm wandering around, running into people. I'm looking for the flight instructor. Like, oh yeah, he's in the back. And so I finally get back to this guy's in this office about maybe this size, and he's got little model airplanes all the way around the top. And I'm like, hey, look, this is kind of who I am, what I want to do. And he was like, well, like, I'm old, and they took my medical away, so I can't instruct you, but I know a guy who can do that. Mm-hmm. And he sends me up to Hope, Arkansas, where they have like a little Cessna 150, mm-hmm. and they have this other guy that's instructing. And I go up to him, and I was like, hey, I want to learn how to fly. And he was just like, hey, we'll get in this airplane, we'll take you flying. And so this all happens like this one afternoon, right? And so he takes me out. We go like buzz his girlfriend's house. She comes out, waves at us. We were like waving back at her. Cool. Yeah, we land. The door pops open. So like my first experience with a small airplane was like we take off and the door like swings open. I'm just like, is that supposed to happen? He's like, yeah, it happens all the time. No big deal. I'm
That's
like,
perfect.
Okay, because I don't know. Right. And so he lands and he's like, hey, you think this is something you want to do? I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like and so that's how I got started. And after that, I just started like hanging out around the airport. And that's like one of the best ways. If you want to get involved in aviation, just go to the airport and find somebody that will let you just hangar flee, what they call it, and they just hang out. Mm-hmm. And you start picking up all kinds of flights that way in different little airplanes. People are like, hey, look, we're going over here. We have an extra seat. Do you want to go? Like pilots and mechanics love to like just share what they're doing. Right. And so it's really easy to get involved. And I mean, I started doing a little maintenance here, a little maintenance there, and then eventually started to save up enough money by like mowing grass and fixing lawnmowers and that kind of thing to get started actually flying. So I'd save up a little pot of money, I'd fly for 4 or 5 hours, and I'd run out of money, and I'd have to save up another pot of money, just keep doing that over and over again until I joined the Army. Huh. Yeah, that's how I got going.
So you just had the itch for it, man. Yeah, you had the burn to learn.
Yeah, just wanted to get out there and get involved. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, what next?
I don't know. Well, so like I joined the Army. I'd gotten really frustrated with my whole let me earn a lot of money and then start using it to do flight trainings and stuff like that. Because like we ended up having like a weather system came in. I couldn't fly for like 2 weeks, and then with flight training, especially when you're first starting out, like if you don't stay like right on top of it, it's not like something that once you get an hour, you have like that level of proficiency, and it becomes like static. Like it'll kind of decay, and you have to like build back up again. So it just kind of like felt like I was going in a circle. And at the fair, I'd seen a booth for a warrant officer flight training for the Army, and they were saying like, "Hey, like their big tagline was like high school to flight school." And I was like, "I'm in high school. I would like to go to flight school." So they kind of, I sit there and talk to them. They're like, "Yeah, like you're a senior. Well, come see us at the mall and all this other good stuff." And I was just like, man, all I've ever heard about Army recruiters is that like y'all are shady. So I just kind of like didn't pay any attention to them. Fast and forward to like, it's like February, my senior year, and I'm working at the old feed house on Arkansas Boulevard. Yeah. And I'm sweeping the buffet line, and it's kind of like a weird thing. Once you start to work in like certain places, you kind of start paying attention to like weird things. Well, I got to where I was paying a lot of attention to people's shoes. It's just kind of like the old Forrest Gump line that like, you can tell a lot about a person with shoes. And when you're looking down, you're sweeping all the time. That's all you have to look at. You're just like, and so I'm looking at all these different people's shoes, and I come across these ones I've never seen before. And they're super shiny, and I was just like, man, that's weird. And I kind of looked up, and it's an Army recruiter, and that's not one I had talked to. And I was like, and it had been one of those days where it rained, I couldn't fly, and I was getting frustrated. And I was like, yeah, what's this like flight school stuff about? And he's like, he hands me a card. He goes, just come by tomorrow. Like I'll be there, and I'll talk to you. Well, long story short, I go in, and next thing I know, like I graduate in 20 May or whatever, and then I end up in like July 27th. I'm at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, in basic training. Like they convinced me that I needed to go be a mechanic first to learn all that stuff, I see. And then go and put my application in for flight school, which was not true. Like it did. I think in retrospect, is probably a better option for me, because like maintenance, there's a lot of advantages to knowing maintenance, and I think most pilots, like once they kind of get to a point where they got all their ratings and they're working, they really start getting really curious about maintenance.
Right.
It's harder to get into. Well, with me, I started off that way, and then basically becoming a pilot is nothing more than just swiping the credit card enough times to where like you can finally get enough hours in. Well, so I ended up getting convinced to do that. So I go through Fort Jackson, go to Fort Eustis, Virginia, do my training there, and then they put me in Fort Drum, New York, which out in the middle of Nowhereville, New York. It's it's right across from the Canadian border.
Oh yeah, so northern New York.
Yeah, it's like Syracuse, about 45 minutes north. And
it's pretty there.
It's very pretty in the fall, especially. It's really beautiful, but then it snows and it stays under snow for like 9 months.
Yeah, I was in Detroit. And I had to drive through the Appalachians, so I kind of got up in that area a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So we did that. And then from that was like right during the heyday. This is right before the George Bush announced the surge into Baghdad, and so like the Army's like super strapped for people. They're deploying us back to back to back. So I'll go out of training, and I just get into this massive super high op tempo time for the next 6 years of my life. Just deploy here, come back, do a bunch of training, then deploy again, come back, do a bunch of training, so on and so forth.
And you were doing mechanic work at that time?
Yeah, so I was like the OH-58 Kiowa Warrior, OH-58D was the aircraft I worked on, which ironically was so the Kiowa goes all the way back to Vietnam. Whenever and like some of our airframes were actually Vietnam
classic looking Vietnam helicopters.
Yeah, so like most people don't associate the Kiowa with Vietnam, even though it was there from the beginning, pretty much. The helicopter I worked on looked a lot like the LifeNet helicopter you'll see fly over, because that's a 407. Ours was a 206. So it's like its little brother. They built the 206 first and the 407 later.
Okay.
And so the key difference though is that our helicopter originally, like back in the Vietnam days, it was just that. It was basically a civilian helicopter that was CARC painted, and they flew it with the doors off. And what they would do is they would either use it to move people around the country, or they would use it to do Aero Scout stuff. So they'd fly over and look for people, and then they would mark it with smoke grenades and say this is where they're at, and then they would go and shoot them with and they would fly what they call pink teams, where you have a 58 would fly and find stuff, and then the Cobras would come in behind them and actually do the attack work. Okay. And so if as time kind of progresses on, there's the Iranian, so we have this whole Strait of Hormuz crisis that's going on right now with all these Iranian fast boats.
Yeah.
Those fast boats back in the late 80s and early 90s were attacking oil derricks, and they were we really need, they're hard to target because it's like a little bass boat running around this massive ocean, so it's trying to find this little speck. We need a good platform to find that. And they had all these old OH-58s. So within about 90 days, they built a sight system that the 58s could get over the horizon and look and find these boats and then target them. And so what they would do is they would laser designate them, and they would have the Apaches that were also behind the 58s, and they would fire Hellfires and hit these boats and kill them. Well, that was really, really effective. And it was old Vietnam era pink team tactics just updated with technology. And there's a Nicolas Cage movie called, I believe, called Firebirds that is all about this. So essentially, you have this, it was a little short-haired girl. It was big back in the night. I don't remember her name. She's the Kiowa pilot flying around, single pilot. And then you get Tommy Lee Jones and Nicolas Cage and these Apaches doing things that no one really ever does in Apaches, like barrel rolls and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen that movie, man, but it's been a long time.
It's a hilarious movie because it's so cheesy.
Yeah.
But it's good if you just want to watch helicopter stuff. But
right.
So anyways, so that whole movie, it really kind of shows what the Kiowa could do. Well, as time progressed on, they were just what if we took the Apache out and we just gave them guns? And so then they started putting rockets and air-to-air Stinger missiles and 50 caliber machine guns on the side of the 58. Oh. Fast and forward to the global war on terror, that's what I enlisted to go work on. So we rolled into Baghdad. My first deployment was we were the first Aero Scout surge force into Baghdad. So we went into the Baghdad International Airport back whenever it was the Wild West. We landed day one, it's rockets and sniper fire, all kinds of just insanity.
Wow.
And they were just all right, go to town. And we basically just went to work for about 90 days. It was just a shoot fest. We were I became a mechanic from day one in Baghdad to about day 90. Whenever it really started to slow down, we'd either killed or run off everybody that was there causing trouble, because inside of that 90 days, we took a fleet of old aircraft that hadn't been flown like that before. I mean, you go from something that's flying an hour or two, like once a week.
Right.
To all of a sudden now it's flying like 8 to 12 hours a day, every day. You really start to ring them out. And so you start seeing like all kinds of like faults that no one really ever thought about before. And, I started learning things that like you could talk to somebody about, but you can't really learn until you're doing it. You're troubleshooting this, or you're fixing that, or plugging whatever. And that 90 days was like pivotal for me, both in terms of just like how to become a mechanic. I learned a lot of technical stuff. First time I ever used a wiring diagram and a multimeter was on the flight line in Baghdad trying to fix a starter generator that had messed up, which would become like pivotal to what I used later on in Boeing and even today.
Wow.
But like also in terms of just like kind of growing up, because you go from like being 18 to just like whatever, and then you're also now here's all this responsibility that I was like one of like 8 mechanics maintaining these 10 helicopters that like you had to pull your weight. And then leadership lessons too were like abound in that environment, because like all of a sudden now it's just like here's all this responsibility. There's nobody coming to save you. Figure it out. And it was a good way to grow up. So
I'd say so.
Yeah,
you set yourself up is what you did.
Yeah, well, not by any design on my part.
You didn't know what you were getting into.
It was an accident.
Yeah, so, that's awesome, man. That is great.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is jumping too far ahead or not, but I was wondering about the P-8 Poseidon and the KC-46. The Pegasus.
Yeah, so kind of like fast and forward to I'm working at Aviation Technical Services, is a maintenance repair overhaul facility up in Everett, Washington. Now they're also in Dallas now. They've expanded a lot since I worked there, and they were primarily their main focal point of business was to be the repair station for Southwest Airlines. So I had like all these pictures of inside the hangar, which is like a sea of Southwest jets. And what we would do is we'd go over to China and find these old ragged 737s, and then we'd buy them and fly them up to Everett, and we would completely strip them down. I mean, they strip them down. I mean, the paint comes off, like everything comes off, and then the MRO would just basically rebuild them. Well, I wanted to get into avionics really bad, because when I was working at the job I was before, I did a lot of HF antenna or HF radio installations, and I really liked it. I always, ever since like I learned wiring diagrams, multimeter stuff, it was like a lot of fun to work with. Well, they were hiring, they offered me a job as a master mechanic, but they also had this other job that was like open. There was an avionics technician, like what they call it, like apprentice or something like that. And so I was like, I'll take that. And they're like, whoa, we'll pay you like $36 an hour if you go do this job. And I was like, yeah, but I've always really wanted to do avionics, and I think I can make the budget float if I just go over here and like kind of learn like this whole new skill. And I saw that as a way to kind of pivot. And because like avionics, guys, most people are scared of electricity. Yeah. And so they just like, if I can be a mechanic, but then also like kind of like really niche myself into that, I'm a lot more valuable, which was a good move in my part.
Smart,
looking back in the day. And so you kind of took the hit. Well, so I go in there, and so my job on those jets was to basically install like go internet, Panasonic in-flight entertainment systems and stuff like that. And so they did that. We did that for the old like South China aircraft that Southwest was buying. We also did a lot of updates and a lot of troubleshooting work and a lot of Panasonic installs on American Airlines 777-300s. So that's a really cool airplane, because it's like a flying building. Like they're so big that you get inside like their breaker room is like, I mean, it's bigger than this building.
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
It's huge. And so just the fact that like kind of coming from the small aircraft world, that all of a sudden now like I could fit like multiple of my aircraft inside of this aircraft and I'm working on it.
Oh wow,
it was a lot of fun. And that was cool. And you're getting to like, because I was avionics, I was getting to actually play with it. Like it wasn't just like, let me go change this filter or whatever else. Like I'm going through all the functional tests. So like at one point in time, like on a 37, I felt like a 37-900 and maybe even the MAX, I had a good or better systems knowledge than most of your airline pilots, just because you're going through and working those systems so often, like every single night, you're just going through everything over and over and over again. And so like I got to do that. They did a little Boeing business jet, so they take like 737s and strip them down and then make them like I've got pictures of alligator skin toilets that we would install, and like these like just like super like Jeffrey Epstein level luxury jets.
And this is for private.
Yeah, it's like one of the ones that we worked on. Probably the most opulent one was for 8 bankers in the state of Washington. It's like something like like lots of millions of dollars of jet.
Yeah.
We did that, and then. What else? There was another part of it. Oh, the Janus flights. You know what the
I do not.
Okay, all right. So you know what Area 51 is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So Janus was a like a contractor that moved people from Las Vegas International to what it becomes Area 51. That's kind of like a collective term for a bunch of little sites that are around there. Well, okay, so they would take these old 737s and they would rattle can the inside of the windows so that you can't see out. And they would stack everybody in there. So like they told us like, hey, look, we got a Janus contract, and I'm like wigging out. I'm like, this is going to be cool.
Well, that'd be exciting.
Yeah, right. Because this is the type of aviation I kind of want to get into.
You might see something that
right, like this is like UFO level craziness, right?
Yeah.
So we have to like this is like a hangar where you just got to go to the plane that you're working on, like almost like an auto body shop, right? Well, they put this thing in like this far end with the security guards. So you had to go in there and you had to inventory all your tools, everything you're taking in. You had to turn in your cell phone. Like this is a whole new world for me. And so I'm like super excited. Around the corner, and here's this ratty old like falling apart 737. I was like, this is it. This is the secret airplane. And so I get in there and I was like, man, this thing's like straight out of like 1960. Like it's like everything's falling apart and stuff like that. And the only thing that was kind of cool is they had like an ADSB cutoff switch up there, which you can turn the part of the transponder that tells everybody where you're at. You could flip that switch. So when they hit the restricted area, they would just turn that off so that way no one could track where the plane was going.
Oh, so it was a little stealth plane.
Yeah, right. That's where I came to learn how to hate air stairs in airplanes. So back in the day, they didn't have terminals that you would get off the plane, so they had these stairs that would come out and then come down like that, and you would walk off the plane, and then the pilot would flip a switch and it would suck the stairs back up in there. Well, trying to get in and work around those stairs is a nightmare. So like I like about day one, I was like, okay, I'm over the air stairs fascination. I don't have anything to do with those, but all that like kind of like prepped me to like, I mean, I learned a lot at that place because we're having to do so much, like that's such a wide variety of avionics work, and on Airbus planes too. For like that was where Hawaiian kind of factored in, and Alaska has at the time didn't, but they eventually got some Airbus airplanes in too. So it was interesting to see like how the Europeans built airplanes versus the Americans. Very different approach, same things but different ways about going about things. And so my wife comes down sick. She gets a tumor in her neck. All right, and so keep in mind, ATS, I'm making like $18 an hour. I don't have any health care or insurance at the time, and I was like, we've got to come up with some other way to make some more money, get something else going. And so I started applying to Boeing, which is right down the road from me. And I can't get a job. I can't get an interview or whatever else. So eventually I was like, I'm applying for like the level of job that I'm at ATS, but on the Boeing side. So I thought like, well, maybe they're promoting within, and these are like just postings for their own people. So I started applying for like the kind of bottom level, which is like an in-tank fuel sealer, which is basically you show up for the job interview, like, have you ever caulked a bathroom? You're like, yes. And they're like, here you go. There's an airplane. Like, so,
oh man.
So I go in there to this guy, and I was like, yeah, like, I'm here for this job. And he's like, well, and he goes like, is this the job that you're applying for? It's got a standard way that Boeing does stuff. And I was like, yep, that's the job I applied for. That's not the job that I want. And he's kind of like, what? Like, and I said, look, man, like this is, I had it printed out, the job that I wanted, which was a functional test technician on the 737 MAX. And I was like, this is the job that I want. This is why I'm qualified to do it. But you guys want to interview me. I don't want the job that you're interviewing for. I'm going to tell you no on that. So let's not waste our time. Let's talk about how to get this job. And he was just like, well, you have to like schedule another interview. And I was like, I don't care. Like, just give me this job. And he was like, okay. So I come back, I do a technical interview with them. And then next thing you know, I'm starting in the Renton factory on the 737 MAX.
Wow.
Before the two crashes.
You made it happen.
Yeah. It was just like,
that's awesome.
This is how we're going to do this. And so I get in there, and like Boeing stock was like $400 and something a share. They're talking about splitting it. We're getting like shares for working at Boeing and stuff like that. I was like, I remember like it was kind of like a pivotal day for me because I got to the third floor of the factory like day one that I was in there, and you look out there and there's like, so Boeing at the time was producing about 50 airplanes a week or a month. All right, so you'd have like 3 737s that are getting built up inside of a week, and they would roll out the door, and then 3 more would come right behind it. It was insane level of like, when you think about how complicated a 737 is, multiply that by 3 and realize that they're doing that every week. Like, like nothing, just
probably didn't have enough guys, did you?
No, well, yeah, they're like all of aviation short on people, and and Boeing was especially. But like looking at that, I was like, I have made it. I've gone from like a single wide in Texarkana, Arkansas, to now like here I'm sitting literally at the top of this world where they're just like, I mean, this is like in 1,000 years they'll talk about like the 7 wonders of the world. This will be one of them because it's just insane what they were doing. And I thought like, and I get to be like, I'm the one that goes in, like puts all the boxes in and turns the power on the plane for the first time.
Awesome.
And so I was like, dude, I've made it.
Yeah.
About a month or two later after that moment, the Lion Air crash happens, the first 737 MAX crash, and then Ethiopia Air, which I turned power on. Like I remember like that coming through our line because it had all this Ethiopian badges and language and stuff on there. And I had a guy or a buddy of mine that worked in Ethiopia. So I took a bunch of pictures. I was like, hey, I'm sending a plane to you. And he was like, oh, that's cool, whatever. Well, that plane, like, about a month after it delivered, became a smoky hole in the ground. And it had the MCAS thing that caused it to crash.
Wow.
So at that point, they, like, all the old guys were like, y'all better get ready because they're about to start laying people off because they started slowing the production rate down, which means the cash starts flowing. They have to cut somewhere. And I thought, like, well, I still have a secret security clearance because I'm in the National Guard at the time. And so I started applying to the military programs across the flight line or across town. And that's how I ended up on the KC-46 and the P-8. I was like, I went over there as a kind of like a way to kind of like, hide out while all this other stuff kind of progressed. And I thought that was going to be a doorway to get into like experimental, like, aviation, more like the Janus flight stuff. That's really what I was interested in. And I got over there and like there was some of that, but not like to the level that I wanted to be. But the P-8 is a submarine hunter. It's actually kind of like the Navy's Swiss Army knife. So it's a 737 NG. So you've actually, if you've ever flown commercial, like going up to Detroit or whatever, you've probably flown on a 737. All right.
I've only been on LifeNet twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't remember the first one.
Okay. Well, yeah. So it's the most commonly produced single aisle regional jet, or technically, I don't know if you want to consider it a regional jet, but it's one of the most commonly produced commercial airlines. Right. So they took that old thing and they put computers all the way on the inside of it to make it look like an AWAC. So like like kind of like a flying command center with like radar capability and stuff. And they had to took a phased sonar array and put it on the bottom. Now, what that means is that there's 4 different antennas where it can scan the waters, and that's how it finds submarines. So it's not looking for just like like going bing, like in like hearing things. But they're also looking at the way that the water is moving and tracking wakes and all that stuff.
Awesome.
It's wild, yeah. And so we got to go and test those, and we would like cover up one antenna and see if we could get like the right difference, and then go to the next one, and it was a fun job.
Yeah, for sure.
But it also has like a pretty robust electronic warfare package in it as well. And there's like sealed delivery packages that you can put on that airplane where you can like open the door and like seals will jump out of it.
Oh yeah.
And they have like what we call the grenade hole. I think it's actually meant for sonar buoys, but it was just hilarious to think about like taking like an old like grenade and throwing it out the side of a plane at 30,000 feet. It's not going to really do anything. But there's like a little porthole in the back you could actually do that out of if you wanted to. I mean, the plane was one of my favorite airplanes I've ever worked on because it was just such like you look at it and it's just like, oh, it's just like an airline or whatever until you open the door and you're like, what is happening in here? You can do so much stuff.
I bet it's very cool looking.
It's neat, especially once you kind of understood like all the things that it could do and what it was built to be customizable and stuff. The KC-46, though, is actually like you'll hear them get mentioned in the news a lot. It's a flying gas station, basically. So you had the 135s. So the KC-135s were the kind of classic, air tanker. There's actually a book called Tanker Pilot, and it talks all about this, that it's like the more under-celebrated side of the Air Force, but it's pivotal. Like the reason why like the Iran war is even happening now is because Syria collapsed, and like whenever Syria collapsed, they got rid of all these corridors that prevented us from putting these tankers out there, so that way you could launch from one place, refuel, and then go into Iran, come back, hit the refuel station, and go back to home base. So it's a force multiplier for aircraft. Right. Well, the 46 was the new version that was supposed to replace the 135. And it had all kinds of crazy stuff on there. Like it had, has 3D cameras in the back end of it, so you can see the So instead of like looking at the back end and trying to fly the fuel probe into the plane like they do like on the 135, you would sit in a station and it had 3D cameras that would like produce a 3D image. And you'd wear these like kind of glasses that you'd fly your probe that way. And so it could also do drogue. So before. Like the Navy uses drogues, so they have like this. It's like a big fuel hose with a parachute on the back of it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That flies out to the plane. The plane comes up and links up to it. All right. The Air Force uses a probe, which is big, it's a pipe that comes down. Right. Okay. So before you had drogues or you had pipe, one of the two. Right. Okay. Well, the 46 is the first plane to ever put those together to where you could have either or all of them at the same time, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
They also had a place where you could put medical evacs, because like you can only fly so much fuel, and so like once you're kind of at the max there, you're like, well, we have all this extra empty weight and we have all this extra space. What can we do with it? And so they put like sensor packages in there or medical evacuation. It was like super customizable again to try to maximize that flexibility. So it was a cool plane. It had a lot of problems. Like a lot. Like, so they tried to take the old 135 fueling system and put it inside of this big 767, which is what the KC-46 is. And there was just a sea of problems. Like, and there still is a lot of them. There was like internal problems at Boeing that caused all these issues. So like we were constantly trying to like fight through all this stuff. It was like a really challenging airplane to work on for sure. Yeah, P-8 super cool. The KC-46 is probably should be replaced by a drone with a bunch of gas tanks.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I think it makes so the 46 has a lot of benefit to it that like you couldn't get out of a drone, like the flexibility aspect of it. However, for what you're doing, like it makes a lot of sense to just simply like build a drone that can like fly itself, and because all they do is just fly in a big circle, and the planes pull up to them, and then they communicate. We can do that all. Like the rule with drones is dull, dirty, and dangerous, right? That's a really dull job. Humans don't necessarily need to do it. We can put a robot up there just flying circles in the sky, and that's pull up. And you can connect to them remotely. So if you needed to interact with the aircraft, you can do it with somebody on the ground station. You don't necessarily need somebody on that plane. And the Navy has been playing around with this idea for a while. It's probably operational, but like we'll never know about it because we're not in the program.
Right.
But yeah, like I think that's kind of where we're going. And now you do lose some of the robustness of the 46 being able to move all that kind of stuff and being able to be customizable that way. But you could probably find other platforms to do it just as well. So yeah, I think that's kind of probably where we'll end up. So
that's very interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Should we move to the your college?
Yeah, sure. So so I'm still in the National Guard. So I deploy to Poland with the Guard. Whenever I come back, my wife is like, this is after like the George Floyd riots and stuff, and I was like all involved in all that on the Guard side. And so she's like, I don't want to live here up in Seattle anymore. I want to like try to get somewhere back, like towards Texas, South Carolina, or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, her best friend's husband had taken up a job at Boeing, South Carolina, on the 787 line. And I wanted to get into management at this point. I was like, I've done, like, I got to where I could show up in a new airplane and I could learn it really well in about 6 months. And after that, I started getting bored. And I was just like, there's nothing, it's when you're producing the same thing over and over again, it only breaks like a certain amount of ways, and once you kind of learn those, you can troubleshoot stuff blindfolded. Like literally, it's super easy.
Wow.
And so I'm just like, okay, well, maybe this opportunity to come back from Poland, go to the 787 line, get into management and kind of climb my way up there. And it looked like it was going to happen, kind of like the under table conversations, like Bob knows this guy, whatever, it was going to happen. Well, the girl that was supposed to hire me, I get back and she gets promoted. And then there's a new guy that comes in. He doesn't know who I am. So I show up and interview with him and he's just like, nah, whatever. Like wants to go a different route. And so that kind of put me in this situation where I had to either A, quit Boeing totally, or B, go and go up to back up to Seattle, which my wife didn't want to do. And so then I was like, well, I've always like as a hobby like written, and I'd gotten to where I was able to make some money off of it. And so I was like,
you're a writer.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to write full time and try to see how that goes. And so we basically we had already sold our house, and we moved back to Texarkana. We took a tiny house. It was probably about the size of your shop, your studio here, and that's what we lived in for about a year and a half, 2 years or so.
Yeah.
As I wrote, and I got really I got to where I had a pretty consistent income coming into it, but it was a lot of copywriting, and so like, copywriting is very boring. It's not like writing like the kind of engaging writing that you want to do. So I thought like, well, you kind of have to like pay your dues in any industry and kind of work your way up. So I thought like, well, this is going to eventually pan out. Like I make money, and then I keep on pitching articles to these other, places, and I can kind of work my way up. And that was true. But then AI came out, and like AI basically all of a sudden you could pay me $2,000 a month to write your copy, or B, you could pay AI nothing and get the same thing. So that really took a lot of the money away. So I was like, well, okay, back to aviation we go. And just about that time, the city manager here, David Orr, on the Texas side, came to me. It was like, hey, like TC's trying to start an aviation program.
Yeah, I remember when they started that up.
Yeah, you should go talk to them about it. And so that's how I ended up into that whole world. I showed up and it was basically like, you guys don't want to get involved in aviation. There's a lot more to it than what you think. And they're like, no, we really want to do it. And then they had a budget for it. I was like, okay, well, yeah, I wrote them a letter and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, if you hire me, this is how it's going to go. And they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. So I was like, all right. So here we go. And that's how it came to be. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And when did that start?
So we officially started a year from this past January. So it was like 2024, 25. Okay. Yeah. 25. Yeah. So, we've graduated several, we do everything in cohorts of 20 or so. And every 3 months or every month or every semester we're graduating another group of 20. So it feels like it's a lot longer ago than what it actually was because we're integrating so fast. But yeah, so it's going pretty well. We're about to start a new group of 20 or I think actually we have the next cohort's only like 11. Summers are always smaller because people generally will enroll in the fall. That's our bigger cohorts are at. But yeah, we're supposed to start them here in just the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And what are y'all gonna be doing?
So the program is 3 semesters. So to be able to work on an FAA certified aircraft, you have to be an airframe and power plant technician. So it's really 2 certificates. You have like your airframe certification and your power plant certification. And there's some people out there who just have one, not the other. There's a lot of folks that way. But most of the employers want you to have both. All right. So airframe basically teaches you how to work on airframes, and it's like kind of a catch-all for you're going to do like basically HVAC. So you have to learn all that kind of stuff on in an airplane. You're learning a lot of basic electricity and a lot of advanced avionics. You're going to learn how to buck rivets. You're going to learn how to lay up composites. I mean, it's like literally an AMP is like everything rolled into one because you don't know what you're going to end up being having to work on. So like you just think about my career. I started off with like small VFR only attack helicopters. Ended up working on like state of the art, like jets that are flying people around. Very, very different, very, very different skill sets, but a lot of similarities simultaneously. So airframe does all of that. Now power plant is engines and propellers. It's more specific, and the engines breaks down to turbine engines and piston engines. And honestly, like the piston engines take more time to get people schooled up on, especially the older ones. They have like magnetos and that kind of thing. It's more work to get them schooled up on that than it is jets. Jets are pretty straightforward. It's just suck, squeeze, bang, blow. It's like it's just one big long tube that's an explosion is happening in.
Wow. Well, I got to ask you, what is the most impressive
like aircraft
that you have either just seen or even worked on? I guess.
Man, that's
have you?
It's like trying to choose a kid,
right?
Yeah. They're all so like probably my all time like what's near and dear to my heart is the OH-58 because that's really it has this like really it was a. Honestly, in the world of helicopters, it was kind of a junker helicopter, but it was falling apart and had all kinds of problems and stuff like that. But that one's probably the closest to me. As far as just generally impressive, the P-8 is probably like the most like underrated, like overlooked aircraft out there. But what it can do is amazing. And like, there's why like the Indian Navy is going and buying them like by the droves because they can do so much with one platform.
And that's a helicopter?
No, that's the 737 Sub Hunter.
Okay.
Yeah. That one is probably the most impressive one. I'll say like some of the private jets are really cool because they're small. They're not as big and flashy as say like a 777 or something like that. But like the level of care that goes into them is like really kind of out of this world. Like from the interiors guys just doing everything. I mean, it's like its whole like trade itself is like aircraft interiors, and they're really particular about it, and it's really immaculate. Down to even just the maintenance side of them. Like you look at like some of these like Legacy 500s, Praetor 500s and stuff, and you pop the panel on them, and it's like just immaculate on the inside.
Wow.
Like it's from a mechanic standpoint, that's like that like will endear you to them because it's so clean and everything's just dress. Everything is supposed to be the way that it is, and I really like that aspect of it.
The amount of money that goes into those things,
a lot,
is unreal.
Yeah, I mean, like some of your smaller jets you wouldn't think it would be much will be a $20 million jet. If you were to just go out and buy one. There's a whole like financial strategy behind why a lot of the people. You look at these jets and like I can tell you the difference between a real jet owner and somebody who just wants to play like they're a jet owner. Right? A real jet owner is just like the jet's just like whatever because it's just an asset they can buy and depreciate, and they use it to move their company around or products around or something else like that. Yeah, sure, it's pretty and all this other good stuff, but the jet owner really doesn't care. They're just like they just need the thing to get things done.
Work.
Right? Yeah. The guy who wants to play like he's like I'm the private jet dude or whatever else, he's the one that's like taking pictures, like shipping champagne and stuff like that. And he doesn't really have any money. Like against the guy that actually does have the money, he's too busy working to keep that money.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Man, that's just very impressive. Everything you're saying, man.
Yeah.
So. Before we get into the air show talk, I still want to ask you about your chaplain
Chaplain work.
chaplain
Right.
chaplain work, man.
Yeah.
Because that's very interesting to me too. And
Yeah, it's a complete departure from everything else.
because obviously, you being a man of faith, and I guess did becoming that, or was you already a man of faith before that, or did that help you build?
Yeah, so that's a journey into itself, to borrow your daughter's name. So originally, I wanted to get into to aviation to do mission work. That's what I wanted to do. And then I ended up doing this.
That's right. You told me that from the beginning.
Yeah, this crazy boondoggle into next thing you know, I'm fighting wars and doing all that kind of stuff, and it was a hard time. So it was specifically hard coming out of that, because I remember when I was on active duty, I was like, I cannot wait to get out. I had my day count to where it was like a joke. People would come, how many days did I left? I'd be like 622, whatever. I had down to the day, I just can't wait to leave. And that day came, and I could not wait to leave. And I remember I drove off, and I drove from Hunter Army Airfield, and I drove back to Texarkana. I got here, and I was like, okay, I'm done. And for about a month or so, that was nice, and I think I was really just burnt out because our op tempo was so high back then. This is back in the heyday of Iraq and Afghanistan. And but then after that, I remember I was watching the news one day, and they were just this Apache got shut down somewhere, one of those, and I was like, man, who's over there? And then immediately I thought, when are we supposed to go there? And then I was like, oh, there is no we now. And then I was like, oh, I'm not a part of that anymore. And it had gotten so ingrained in me, I was like, I don't know what to do. And that really, I started to spiral at that point.
Yeah.
It was really, really, really bad. And it led into about a 2-year period that I ended up joining the National Guard. I thought I'll join the Guard, because I had a buddy of mine that was pestering me to do it anyways. And so I was like, I'll join the Guard, and that's kind of close enough to the Army, but it's not a full-time gig, whatever else. It was a terrible idea. I shouldn't have joined at the time that I did. And I really struggled really hard. And I kind of got to this point where I needed help, and I knew this old pastor friend of mine that actually, he didn't really live that far from your house. And so I wrote him a letter. I didn't have his phone number or anything, but I could find where he was listed, living. I saw on some website or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I wrote him a letter. I was like, dear, whatever. And I sent it off to him. Well, he gets a letter and he calls me. He's like, you should come by the house. And then that started this whole multi-year process where I would come over to his house every Tuesday, and we would sit and we would talk for 4 or 5 hours. And it was kind of structured around we're just going to go and take apart a book of scripture and kind of go through that. But really, when I look back on it, there was a lot of times where I'm just unpacking all this stuff that I'm trying to process from multiple deployments, plus trying to figure out who am I, because you think you join the Army whenever you're 18, they tell you who you are. You're now Private Sanders. You're going to go do this, right? When you come out, there's nobody there to tell you that, and you're trying to figure out, just like you think about an 18-year-old kid kind of goes out in the world on his own, he's just trying to figure out the world. Yeah. Well, now here I am doing that, but I'm 20-something years old.
Took the fish right out of the water.
Yeah.
And just set you somewhere else.
Yeah, and so there was a lot of just struggle trying to figure out what that is, and he really was kind of instrumental in keeping me this side of the dirt for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of got to this point where I was a lot more healthy, both physically, mentally, spiritually. And I was like, what am I supposed to do now? I felt called to go be a missionary pilot, and that did not work out. That was totally I was wrong. And so I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I was really kind of struggling with that, because I realized I was in this place where this isn't forever. I'm kind of in this weird holding pattern. I've got to go somewhere. I got to do something. There needs to be some sort of mission, some sort of purpose. And we had gone. I was in the 1st of the 153rd Infantry out here on the Arkansas side, the Arkansas National Guard, and we'd gone up to Fort Chaffee and had trade up there by Fort Smith, and we were coming back. I was one of the last ones off the bus. I remember I was coming into the armory to go put my stuff away and then go home, and I walked in, and they have those little, the recruiters will have stands. They have flyers in them and stuff for go be a cook or whatever, you know. So I walk up there, and there's one of those stands, and there's a flyer in there that says Chaplain, and I was immediately I knew. I was that's it. That's what I'm supposed to do. So I go and get that, and then within about a year or so, I'm in seminary. I'm in the chaplain candidate program, and next thing you know, I'm up in Little Rock, doing chaplain work.
And that took you how many years just to get to that?
It was several. I mean, so I got off active duty in 2011. I think I commissioned in 2014, late 2014, almost 2015. So it was 3 or 4 years of just mess,
going through something you did not want to be. You didn't want to do.
Yeah, and
that's how he works.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Yeah, it was there's a lot of you go and you look at scripture. It's kind of you'll hear these like prosperity gospel guys talk, and they're like, oh yeah, just like, give your life over to God, everything's great, whatever else. And I like to remind people that like every time you, especially in the Old Testament, you go and God says like, hey, like you, whatever, and they respond, it immediately goes to hell, like immediately,
That's when you start the fight.
yeah, right. And that's definitely what it was for me, because I really think looking back on like God calling me to be a missionary pilot, there may be an element of truth to that, but God was just kind of calling me, and that's just the way I interpret it. And I just kind of ended up through this very much this kind of dark desert, culminating with just getting out of the Army. Like I always thought like the Army was the dark desert, but really that was just the preamble to the real darkness that came later. But looking back on it, if I had not gone through all of that, I would have been a poor chaplain. Yeah. Whereas I think I did a decent job my whole time as being a chaplain, which will end in February. I'll finally get to retire.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
but you'll never really be fully retired.
No,
it's in you now.
Yeah. There's a quote I have hanging up in my garage that like men love war, like young men. Or how does it go? Like old men love it in, and men love to be in it. Like like young men love to be in war, but like old men just basically cling to it or whatever. It becomes part of your identity. Like still this day, I work out 5 o'clock in the morning, just like I was still on active duty, just because it's kind of like just who I am. And I listen to like the Enforcer News talking about like war news today, like what's going on where and everything else like that.
You're staying ready.
Yeah. I mean, and like even though like the likelihood of me being involved in anything from here was very, very low.
Right.
But like you still like it just becomes part of who you are.
Yeah.
You
wouldn't feel good if you stopped doing what you've
Right.
And I'm the opposite. I need to start.
Start doing it. Yes. Right.
And I always tell myself I'm going to start, and I'll do it for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I
go
back. Yeah. But hopefully one of these days I'll start, and it'll actually it'll take hold.
Yeah. It's all comes down to purpose and identity. Like if you have what your purpose is, and that tells you what your identity is, and that you think like, well, okay, like if my purpose is to fight in wars and stuff, and I'm a soldier, then what do soldiers do? Like what do I do like right now? Well, I need to be like doing PT. I need to be like practicing this or whatever else. Yeah. So that's what all.
He wants you to be mature.
Yeah.
That's why you go through so much, so that way at the end, you're not lacking anything.
Yeah. Right.
And I forget what scripture that is, but I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it is. It's in James chapter 1, if I remember right. And so
I'm not a scholar.
Yeah.
But,
So.
All right. Yeah. Well, do we want to start talking about the actual air show?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So the Texarkana Air Show is coming the June 27th to the regional airport, and at 7 a.m. there will be a run, run the runway, a 5K. How long is a 5K?
It's 3.1 miles or 3.2.
That's just down and back?
No. So like the 5K will start on Globe Avenue, and it'll run all the way down to East 19th Street, and you won't actually get on East 19th. You actually run through the grass because we don't want to shut East 19th Street down. And then you go on to the airport property, and then there's like this big long trail that you have to go down to get onto one of the taxiways. And you hit the taxiway, and you turn, and then you go down the runway. And you run the runway for a long ways, which sounds super exciting until you run on a runway.
Yeah.
Then it's this long straight run. Anyways, then you turn, and then you come back down, and then you run over to the finish line, which is right in front of the stage where like Wade Bowen will be singing, like where the air boss will be and stuff like that. So you'll run down Vendor Row through the static displays of aircraft, all that stuff.
But they're not opening up the gates to the public until 10.
Yeah, till 10. So like basically the run, if you're a runner, you'll run from 7 to 9. Then we'll button up the airfield and make sure that everybody's off, everything's clean, and we're good to start like kind of the whole operation. And then at 10, the gates open, and you're off to the races.
So I'm guessing that the runners, it's just them and their families.
Yeah. So like anybody like we're working through a lot of those little details, but essentially, like you get a race bib, you're on, and then if you have like people that want to like kind of cheer you on or whatever, there's a way to
and they had to have people there to help them too, because that's a long run.
Yeah, so that's So we'll have like EMS people that will follow them. We have our students will be out there kind of point setting, turning people, making sure they don't get get lost or whatever. You have a lot of race logistics that are happening during that time. So.
Okay. And then I guess the static aircraft display all day.
Yeah, so static display aircraft are just that. They don't move, so they're not performing. So we'll have the day before, you'll have a lot of these static aircraft that will come in, and they're anything from an AC-130. So most people know what a C-130 is. You'll see them in town, kind of coming flying over town. It's like the big kind of cargo planes. The AC-130 is that same aircraft, but it has like a howitzer, a 25 millimeter cannon, and there's another there's a recoilless rifle in there, I believe. So like we'll have one of those on the north end of the field, and we'll have a C-130 on the back end, and then we have a whole litany. Like I believe we're slated to get an F-18 in from the Marines. There's going to be like a Cobra from the Marines.
Can you go inside of any of them?
Yeah, you should be able to go in there and look at them. Walk in, see everything.
Awesome.
And our static list is still kind of growing because it's easy to get static aircraft because you just basically fly them somewhere and park them.
Yeah.
And then the pilots will walk around and talk to people and stuff like that. We have like a C-47 from World War II will be there, and they'll have actual reenactors that like they're schooled up on like I'm Bob and I jumped into Normandy and I can tell you my whole story and what I did during the war and stuff like that.
Wow.
You'll have a bunch of helicopters, like safari helicopters will be out there. It's like the world's only like light sport experimental helicopter. So if you want to build your own helicopter, you can get one from Safari. So they'll be out there. They'll have a couple of Black Hawks from the Arkansas National Guard, and that's just like the top of the list. Sling aircraft. So if you're a GA person, like you like to fly small airplanes and stuff, Sling will be there. It'll be one of the first things you see as you walk in is one of the Slings. There's going to be a whole bunch of different types of airplanes out there.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Of course, there's going to be vendors, food trucks. I heard somebody said 30 food trucks.
Yeah, that number keeps growing.
True?
Yeah. So the last number I know for sure was 27. So Monica Beeman that runs Pickle Fest, she's basically the wrangler of the vendors, and that's a job into itself. And that's one of the things that's kind of crazy about the air show is that like a lot of people see me talking about it, and you might see one of the other team leads, but you don't see like the sea of people that are trying to like make this work because you have to. It's such a complex like operation. So Monica owns the vendor setup and the coordination with them. And like they said, like I think she told me like 27 food trucks and there's like 80 something vendors total.
Oh wow.
There's a lot of there's a lot.
I don't think one day is going to be enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're going to be very busy that day. We're going to try to see everything.
So then the motorcycle show.
Yeah.
Featured by Texarkana Harley Davidson.
Yeah. So
or some of the bikes, I guess.
Yeah. No. So like so Harley is like actually kind of like a 2-part thing. So we're gonna have the pre-air show, kind of like the pregame out there during their bike night that Friday before. So they're gonna have like free food and music and stuff. We're gonna have like the WASP like mobile museum, which it's like the women in aviation. We'll have their setup there. Oh. We're trying to see if we can get some other things. So Safari will have a helicopter out there.
So you're saying the Harley Davidson will be there the day before?
Yeah. So like at the dealership itself will be like the big bike night.
Okay.
And then the next day
they're gonna ride.
Yeah, you'll have the bike show, and they're putting a big invitational out to try to get as many bikes there as possible. And so the kind of the backstory in that, like whenever I first started talking to them, I was like, "What's a big bike show?" And they're like, "Oh, like it's like 30 acres or something like that." And I was like, I think I got more than 30 acres. And I went out there and looked, and we had like 86. And so like if we can fill it all out, we'll have like the biggest bike show around.
In Texarkana.
Yeah,
might make some history.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I was like, this doesn't do anybody any good to think small. Like if you're gonna do something ridiculous.
I think we are going to make some history.
Yeah.
That date for sure.
I hope so. Oh, the good kind.
Yeah,
right.
No doubt. We need it. This town needs it pretty bad.
Yeah,
man.
right.
And a barbecue competition.
Yeah, so the barbecue competition is put on by Champions Barbecue Alliance. It's a qualifier, so like and I don't fully understand their qualification process, but essentially like it qualifies you for the Jack, which is kind of like the Super Bowl for barbecue competition. So you win this one, you can go to the Jack and compete. But there's going to be, I think we've got 50 total trucks that are supposed to come out and compete. They're going to have like a chef's choice competition where the VIP night before, like, so we're gonna have like the air show practice, and then there's gonna be a tango flight symposium that's happening simultaneously, and all those people will come together for this big VIP night where the World War II reenactors will be there in garb, and they'll have a big band playing, so it'll be like Pearl Harbor, if you remember that old Ben Affleck movie. Yeah, that's what it'll be like inside of our hangar, and we're gonna serve them food the night before, and then the barbecue competitors will be able to put out plates for the VIPs to vote on which one was the best or not.
Okay.
Then the next day you have the 4 categories. It's like chicken. I always mess this up. Chicken, pork, beef, and I think ribs is the other one. And then they'll all compete for first, second, third place in those 4 categories. And then you have the People's Choice Awards, so that they'll have like samples out for you to like walk through.
Okay.
And if you really like somebody's barbecue, you can vote for them. And then whoever wins the People's Choice, that they win that. And there's a kids component to the VIP night, so the kids will be able to cook kind of whatever, and then they compete against each other as well.
Man, that's just too much fun right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then we got the live music.
Yep. So you got Heather Lynn and the Deacons will kick it off. Then you go to Cam Allen, and then after that is Wade Bowen.
Wade Bowen.
Yeah.
I've never heard of Wade Bowen or Cam, and I really need to look them up.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah. No, they're big in the kind of the Texas like red dirt country scene,
which I like.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. And then the air show itself, when is it going to kick off?
Yeah, so that time keeps like shifting one way or the other because of different like logistical concerns. But it'll be about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
The Army Golden Knights will jump the flag in, or when Heather Lynn will sing the national anthem.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
So that's how it'll start. And then it's just back-to-back action from small piston airplanes doing crazy acrobat, kind of what you think about air shows, like rolls and barrel rolls and flying upside down, that kind of thing. To we have 2 L-39 jets that are going to do dog fighting, and so they'll actually fight each other, and you'll get to see them play with each other. And then they do a jet versus piston, and so like basically you kind of envision it where you have like a small piston airplane that flies as fast as it can. It's super slow when the jet blows past it.
Oh,
all right, but then simultaneously that jet will try to fly as slow as it can and as low as it can, and it can't do anything that the piston can. The piston can like just deploy flaps and get it and just pull the throttle back and just fly, just almost hover across the ground. And you kind of see the difference between that's why we still have piston aircraft, is that they can do a lot of things that the jets just can't do. They're not built for that way,
Yeah.
And so we'll have those comparisons. You have the we're working to try to see if we can get a D-Day jump. So like you have like guys come out in the big green round, what they call them, brown rounds, that come down. The Golden Knights will do their full show. They'll do 3 appearances. They'll jump the flag, then they do the full actual Army Golden Knight show where they're coming down in like 4 parachutes, like spiraling to the ground. All this good
How many
stuff.
of those, or how many guys are in that team?
I believe there's 16 total of the
wow.
team. It's not a small number. Like, that might be all of them.
But they won't be up there at one time. They're just kind of taking turns. Or
they're jumping at. You'll see like 1, 2, 4, or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then they refit, and then they go back and they're the last act of the show. They'll do a what they call a night show where they fly like pyrotechnics down. So I've been trying to work fireworks into this stuff. This is the best way I could do.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so there'll be all kinds of stuff. We're working to try to get some flyovers like B-52s.
Yeah.
We think we're going to get an A-10. And so you'll have like a whole like variety of different. You'll have like from civilian piston aircraft. There'll be a flight of 14 of RV-12s. I think they're 12s. Yeah, and so like the little small airplanes like we have out at the college, they'll fly over. They're gonna do media rides that day. So it'll be like the whole menagerie of like big jets, little airplanes, helicopters, you name it.
It's going to be a lot to take in.
Yeah, like LifeNet's going to do a demo. We're working with another guy to do K9 deployments with TAPD SWAT. So like they'll fly out and like kick a dog out and go run chase a guy down and stuff like that.
That'd be so awesome.
Yeah, like we're still trying to iron out all the details of all those different things, but that's kind of what's in the works.
So when you're there, is there like a certain place you would be, or just hopefully you get to see it wherever you're?
Yeah, if I was like a person that was coming up there, so like I think there's 3 places I would want to be. One is like we carved out a spot in the middle in front of the stage where you can basically put your lawn chair up and just right there in the middle of it. Now, that's the center of the show, so in theory, if anybody's doing like a loop or whatever, you look up and right there, right? So that's cool, but the problem is the stage is also right there, so you're always kind of like looking up that way.
Yeah.
Now, on the other ends, kind of like the flanks looking inwards, so down by the static display area and like Precision Exotics and stuff, which we've been talking about those guys, or up by the VIP tents. Like one of those 2 places, you could sit back and kind of look level and nothing's in your way, and you can see everything that way.
Okay.
But honestly, like because the air show itself is just above everything, any place is going to work. But like those were one of those 3 places where I'd like kind of plop down if it was just me. In reality, I'm going to run out with the radio and just try to like probably put out fires. Like while y'all are all watching this stuff, like there's going to be like a Porta John fell over or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's how that goes. Yeah. So,
man, I hope I see you out there.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. So.
You think we covered enough?
Yeah, I think you got pretty much everything. So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon.
Yep.
Yeah, I seriously thank you for coming out, man. It was really nice meeting you. You're full of all kinds of good information,
Right.
and a lot of information I don't I don't know about.
Right.
But all right. So make sure that y'all make it out to the Texarkana Air Show happening June 27th, 2026 at the Texarkana Regional Airport. Bring the family, come and support the event, and experience something special right here in our hometown. And Thanks for tuning in to Ancient Weapons Podcast. And remember, stay the course and resist all the evil around you. All right. That's it, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And we'll see y'all later.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.